What is going on, guys? And today we're going to talk about 5 different things that you do at basic training that you get so accustomed to and you think it's the way it is in the real army, but it's not. So real quick, before I get into this video, for my Patreon supporters, one of the benefits that you get from that is you get a personal shout out in this video. So I got 2 new elite ambassadors, which is amazing, Piper Bilbrey and Kalia McComb. I hope I didn't butcher y'all's names, but seriously, huge, big thank you to you guys. Y'all are you're just amazing. And also you're in the tier where we're going to get to FaceTime chat for a little while. So I'm really looking forward to that, guys. Again, thank you guys so much. But let's go ahead and get into the video. The first thing that I want to talk about is something that kind of caught me off by surprise. It was something that I didn't really think about until we got to AIT, because in my AIT we had an MOST, which is an MOS transfer. This guy, he was a sergeant transferring over from another MOS. If you guys didn't know, when you go to AIT for your first time, you are going there, you're not MOS qualified, and once you actually finish AIT, you call yourself MOSQ or MOS qualified. And sometimes there might be an MOST, an MOS transfer, that's somebody who's switching their MOS. And we had this sergeant who, you know, would come by, he took classes with us. They don't stay, MOSTs, they don't stay with the rest of other people, so he had his own little place. But something that you do at basic training and at AIT is when an NCO walks into a room with a whole bunch of lower enlisted soldiers, which would be like E4 and below, you call at ease. So somebody calls at ease. As soon as an NCO, somebody who's an E5 or higher at basic training, as soon as they step into the room, you call at ease. Everybody has to stand up and they have to go like this, and until that NCO says, you know, as you were, or just, you know, continue on doing what you're doing, whatever they say, you know, to let you continue on, then you can kind of sit back down or whatever. And this sergeant, he was an E5, and I remember he would always be like, guys, like, we would do this for him. Like, he would come into the classroom, you know, our instructor was probably, we had several different instructors, but I think they were probably like E6 or I think even E7 as well. And, you know, we'd call it ease whenever they'll walk into the room, and when this NCO who was the MOSC, he would come in and we'd call it ease for him. And he'd be like, guys, like, stop it. Stop calling at ease for me. That's weird. You don't actually do that in the real army. And it's just like, what? And I remember, like, us talk to, like, you don't do that? Like, actually in the real army? Like, you don't call at ease for NCOs? And the thing is, the way they teach it at basic training is you call at ease whenever an NCO enters a room, like, all the time. And honestly, I don't know if it's like specific regulations to where it's supposed to be like E5 or whatever, but the way it actually works is it's generally only called for maybe like first sergeants, maybe, or command sergeant majors, right? So if a sergeant major walks into a room, generally that's whenever you will call at ease and everybody will stand up. Sometimes it'll be a first sergeant, sometimes. Like I just say sometimes, it's never happened to me. I've never been in a unit so far to where like the first sergeant is like the big dog, right? So it's usually just like the big dog on campus or whatever. That's who you're gonna be calling it for. For me, there's always been like sergeant majors and stuff, so it's first sergeant hasn't always been the thing. And then I want to say kind of likewise for officers. So once you actually get into the real army, you're supposed to call attention when officers walk into the room whenever you're at basic training in AIT and whatever. But in the real army, you don't really do that for, like, for me, for example, I'm a second lieutenant. If I were to walk into like some basic training area, they would call attention for me, and everybody would have to stand up at attention, and I'd be like, you know, don't do that, because like you don't really do that for me in the actual real army. Although for them at basic training, I wouldn't say that, because you guys are going to be in a certain little mindset there. In the real army, from my experience, it's really only like battalion commander and higher that we call attention to for everybody else. So whenever battalion commander enters the room or enters the building for the first time of the day, you will call it attention, or if there's like an event or something, that's kind of how it works. But it's not like every single officer and every single NCO that walks into a room you call attention or you call it ease for. That's not the case. I know I kind of explained that a little bit for a good while, but I feel like a lot of you guys would ask questions. What about a second lieutenant? What about a whatever? It's usually like a battalion commander or like a command sergeant major. That's really the only 2 times, or a higher rank than those 2. Now, let's talk about another thing that's you don't think about this at basic training. You don't really think about this that much at AIT, although it's a little bit more relaxed. But talking to a higher up, talking to somebody who is an NCO, or talking to an officer even, whenever you're at basic training, is like unheard of. Like, you don't really just like go up and talk to a sergeant. You don't definitely go up and talk to an officer. Like, that's just like, that's like off limits. That's taboo. Don't do that. Talk to, you know, your PG or something, and maybe have them talk to the drill sergeant, but you don't really do that. But in the actual Army, it's not really that big of a deal. You know, you don't want to be jumping the chain of command for things. You don't want to be, you know, that guy. But let's say you're just standing there, maybe you're doing PT or something, first sergeant or something is just right there. You know, it's not really that bad to just talk to your first sergeant. It's not that bad to just go up to an E6 and maybe ask them a question or something, because at basic training, like, that's unheard of. Like, you don't do that. Once you start getting up to like talking about the higher ranks, like the battalion commanders and like brigade commanders and like those kind of officer ranks, like, you don't generally even are around them that much. But for example, you know, I'm a second lieutenant. It is not bad for somebody who's a private to come up and talk to me if they have a question or whatever. Or I remember whenever I was a specialist, it's not really a big deal to go and talk to like my squad leader who was a staff sergeant. So that's one thing at basic training that is just really not the same once you actually get into the real Army. It's not like the standards are relaxed, it's just they're not so like strict. You know, NCOs, they're not like, private, why are you talking to me? Whereas at basic training, you go up and talk to a drill sergeant's like, private, why are you talking to me? So that's kind of how that whole dynamic works. And another thing that I want to talk about is the battle buddy system. This is going to be like beat into you when you are at basic training and then continuing on into AIT, whenever you still have to have a battle buddy. If you guys don't know what a battle buddy is, it is literally just whoever is your friend or somebody just like next to you. If you have to go to the bathroom, or you're gonna call it the latrine at basic training, you say, hey, you wanna go with me? Do you want me in my battle to go over here? So it's not like assigned or anything, you know, it's just another fellow soldier who's like same rank as you or whatever. And you will take this battle buddy absolutely everywhere you go. It doesn't have to be the same battle buddy, but you will take a battle buddy everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you will have a battle buddy. When you get into the actual Army, that's really not the case. You know, yes, you'll call somebody your battle, you'll say, hey, battle buddy, or whatever, if there might be a few certain circumstances, but it's not like a requirement to have a battle buddy with you everywhere you go. Now at basic training, one of the common occurrences that's gonna happen to you is you're gonna get smoked. You're gonna get some kind of physical corrective training, probably on a daily basis, multiple times a day. When you get to AIT, it's gonna kind of slack off a little bit, but you're probably still going to get smoked or some kind of corrective training, possibly every single day. Not as bad as basic training, but possibly every single day. When you get into the real Army, not so much, right? So obviously it can vary. You know, you might have some NCO who just like really likes, you know, doing corrective training or whatever. You might go to a unit and just, it seems like, you know, whenever you first get there, they're just doing a whole bunch of stuff. But for the most part, that's really not how it is. You know, even in the reserves, you know, I've been walking around. I remember, I think it was the drill before last, you know, I was walking past the motor pool area where all the Humvees and stuff are, and there was a NCO and he was smoking, or he was doing some corrective training for some other soldiers. I think they had screwed up or something. But I mean, it happens, but it's not like a daily occurrence like it is when you get to basic training. So when you're at basic training, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of getting smoked. I don't want to get smoked. When you get to AIT, you're like, oh my gosh, why am I still getting smoked? When you get to your actual unit in the real Army, there might be a little initiation period, even though they're really not supposed to do that, but there might be a little bit of a period where you do get smoked a little bit. But you know, once you get past that, it's really not going to be the common occurrence for you to get corrective training, you know, just like repeatedly all over and over and over and over. Now throughout this video, I've talked about a few things that are kind of like bad for basic training, and then it just gets better once you get into the actual, the real Army. But let's talk about something that's actually better, in my opinion, at basic training that's actually going to get worse, or it's not the same once you get into the real Army. And this is kind of across the board. It's kind of just, you know, it just comes with the reason of why I'm going to say this, which is at basic training, everything is going to be kind of really organized. You're going to have a structure. You're going to have a timeline on what you have to do every single day. You got to have time hacks, so you know you're going to have lunch at this time. You know, after lunch you're going to have something else to do. You know, after that you're going to have something else to do. You know, after all of these things, you have a schedule, and you're going to actually follow that schedule. Whereas in the real Army, it's not so much the same. You know, when you get to AIT, it's going to be a little more relaxed. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is all kind of crazy. There's not like a plan. Like, what the heck is going on here? But then when you get to your actual unit, you're going to get there and be like, what the heck is going on? I have no clue what's going on. What's the structure? Like, where's the schedule at for what we're doing every single day? Oh, there is a schedule for what we're doing today? Why aren't we doing this at this time? Because, you know, that's what the schedule says, but it's like, oh no, it's just not right. Now, this isn't just like my unit or my experience in general. It's just kind of the way it is, really, because, you know, in the Army, you're not doing the same thing every single day. Whereas at basic training, the company commander, they have a cycle to map out and schedule and everything, and you're gonna have something to do every single day. Every minute of every single day, you're gonna have basically something that you're supposed to be doing or getting ready for, prepping for, whatever. Then when you get to the actual Army, every minute of every single day is not necessarily scheduled, so things might be a little bit more hectic, and that kind of causes some disorganization. So that kind of falls on myself. So if you guys didn't know, I'm a second lieutenant, and one of the things that I'm going to have to do and continue to do is try to, I guess, organize things and try to make those time hacks and things a little bit better for people. Although for me personally, I haven't had to do that yet for my specific job, but as an officer, you're gonna be kind of also planning things out. So, you know, for me, this is kind of my job to do, so hopefully I can make it better for my future soldiers that I have underneath me. But for the most part, you guys, you're gonna go to basic, AIT, you're gonna get to your unit and be like, why is it so unorganized? So that's gonna be it for this video. There are maybe a few other things, you know, for example, let's say like food. So, you know, you go to basic training, you don't have that much time to eat. In the real Army, you do have more time to eat. So I could go on and on about all these different things that are different from basic training to, you know, the actual Army, but those are 5 things that you're gonna get accustomed to at basic training that aren't the same in the actual real Army. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. That would be awesome. If you wanna stick around for some more videos, hit the subscribe button. That would be even better. If you haven't hit the notification bell button, hit that notification bell button, because that would just absolutely make my day. If you're not following on Instagram and Snapchat, social media links are right here. Yeah, pointing at it right there. So I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you later.